We are glad to have with us today Mary Fran Tracy. Mary Fran is the editor of AACN Advanced Critical Care. She serves also, one of her other hats that she wears, a tenured associate professor at the School of Nursing and as a nurse scientist at the University of Minnesota Medical Center. What would you suggest as a starting point for somebody that wants to start to write or be published?
The first thing is to look around you and think about the things that you know. So what kinds of topics are you really interested in? What do people come and ask you about and you answer and give other people knowledge about? Look for gaps in the literature and what maybe others want to know more about. And is there something you have some expertise in? It could be clinical, it could be leadership, it could be quality improvement. So be open to many different types of topics. So that's the first thing. The other thing I would say is look for a mentor. So it's always good to be looking. The mentor doesn't have to be in your city or your state. With technology now, you can mentor across a wide span of area. So look for a mentor who's good at publishing and has published a fair number of articles, and they can give you a lot of on-the-ground tips. And the other thing I think is think about things that you already have pulled together. If you've already done a presentation, if you've already done a poster, you've got the bones for a good article. And if you think presentations are good, but you're really only giving the information to 50 people at a time or 100, if you go and publish that, that's open to many more people. It'll be in the literature for a long time and will really be a lasting legacy for information for others to know about.
Exactly. You talked about a mentor. Where does one find a mentor?
Typically, it doesn't have to be in your specialty area, but lots of times that's where the first place we look is because that's the people we know, that's who we network with. I would look at my own institutions. Are there people who've published there? Advanced practice nurse leaders, nurse scientists, other managers, people who've done some publishing there. If you're connected at all with a university or a college, there are professors and associate professors, instructors there who would be willing, I'm sure, to mentor. And then just looking when you go to conferences, people who've spoken and who you know, and even if they can't mentor themselves, they can lots of times refer you to other people who might be interested in being a mentor as well.
And a mentor can help you
Yes.
maybe share experiences they have.
Any tips they can give you are helpful, whether it's in a close mentoring relationship or just giving you tips about how to get started. Anything can be useful in terms of getting over the hump to getting on your way.
Get action.
Exactly.
Take that first step.
Yeah.
First step's the hardest. Well, are there courses or online education or organizations out there that can, give you information and support about writing or publishing?
One of the things I think about is that lots of times universities have writing centers online for students, and those are accessible to anybody. They can usually go on to a local university and just take a look at the writing center, getting tips from that. So that's one thing. I think also depending on the type of article you're going to write, there are guidelines out there, whether they're Squire guidelines or different guidelines depending on whether it's quality improvement or evidence-based practice or research. They tell you what the headings should be. So they've almost outlined for you what the article should look like, and then can sort of, you can just fill in those headers, and it gives you a good starting point to do that. And then if you go to conferences, even your professional conferences, lots of times there will be people doing sessions on how to publish. There's one or two here at NTI. There's the panel session with the editors. They can give you tips and sort of get you excited about how to get that first step taken.
What are things that you look for in an article?
The first thing I think is it a fit for the journal? It could be so well written, but if it's not a right fit for the readership of the journal, they're going to say, this is great, but it's not going to be what we need for our journal. And hopefully the editor will then refer you to other journals that might be a better fit. So really take time to look and see that the journal you're targeting is the right fit for your topic. And then, I hate to say this as an editor, but the next best thing is basic pieces like grammar and spelling. I think lots of times as an editor, you're worried that if there's not attention to detail on those things, then there may not be attention to detail on the data or the ideas that flow too. So while it sounds sort of trite, looking at that as overall tells an editor how committed you are to really getting this published. Looking for things like logical flow. Is it a focused manuscript where you really have 2 to 3 main messages that you want to get across, or is it too wandering or rambling that it's not really going to be easy for a reader? So just taking a look at those basic things. And then finally, just knowing that they followed the author guidelines for the journal. Have they taken the time to see this is how the journal is set up, this is how we publish? You need to follow those author guidelines as well to have a really good shot at getting it sent out for a peer review.
I am so glad to hear all of those things because as one of the editors at allnurses.com, it really does kind of set up a red flag.
Yes, you're right.
Yeah.
And you are more critical then as you read the rest of it to really say, are you confident that they know what they're talking about in the rest of the article?
Exactly. You did a little piece on plagiarism.
Yeah.
Talk to that.
You know, that's becoming more and more of an issue. I think it's easy to get confused about what plagiarism is. So we all tend to think that if you just reference a sentence, but you still go ahead and use the exact wording, that is plagiarism as well. So because that would require quotations. So knowing the nuances of what requires quotations, what requires a citation. And then the other thing which has become more and more of an issue just in the last maybe 10 years or so is self-plagiarism. So people who get good at publishing and publish more and more, once that article gets published, even though you wrote those words, you cannot use the same words again in another article. So you can't take a sentence that's exactly the same or a paragraph and just put it into another article. It really needs to be reworded. So there's a lot of nuances to it, and I think that's where going online, reading about plagiarism, using those writing centers where they talk about that, and using a mentor can help where people truly, without malintent, end up plagiarizing simply because it's a difficult concept to understand all the nuances to it.
They just don't know.
They don't know.
They don't know.
Yes.
I imagine you see a lot of that.
Yeah.
And having to check. What do you use to check plagiarism?
Turnitin or Authenticate is what AECN uses as their plagiarism software.
Great.
And a lot of those can be downloaded online for free. So some basic packages. So even if you want to make sure that you haven't inadvertently done it, you can put it through yourself and check that before you submit as well.
If you were talking to a new writer, a person who is just entering the field, tell me what tips for success at writing you would give to them.
Well, the first thing is you have to really, if you're really serious about writing, you have to schedule it. You have to set goals, develop a plan for writing. Writing is not easy, and there is always something more fun to be done. Experienced writers will do the same thing. They'll sort of keep putting it off and putting it off. So you really have to develop a plan for how you're going to tackle writing a project. And stick to that plan. Even if you sit down that day and it doesn't feel like any word's going to come to you, do something. Check your references again, do some basic reformatting. Something will help get you closer to your goal, even if it's not writing a full page that day. The other thing I think about that the first project doesn't have to be a 25-page manuscript that gets published in a journal. It can be something as a small starting point. Writing a column, writing a letter to the editor, submitting something for a local professional newsletter. All of those are good skills that will just help build you in terms of your skill at writing and your confidence at doing it. So I think those are really good tips to think about.
I agree. I think that's, those were some real gems. Is there anything else you would like to say about how things are going with the journal?
Well, I think it goes in spurts. You can always tell a lot of people are going back to school. So a lot of DNP students, people who are going back for their bachelor's, are submitting articles. So you tend to see an increase as the semesters finish, as people have done some writing for their coursework and put that forward. And those are great potential topics. They always just have to remember that how they write for school is not how you write for a journal. So it may be a really great idea, but it probably will need to be retooled a little bit. And just really be open to the peer review feedback. People give really good feedback in the hopes that you'll take it and make it a better product in the end. It can feel overwhelming to see that feedback coming back in, but if you're persistent and you really try to take a look at it with an open mind that people are really trying to help you improve your article and get your message out, that will get you a long way in terms of getting over the hump and getting it to the final publication stage.
Well, thank you so much for sharing all this information. We've got a lot of new writers on our side that we're trying to help out, and maybe we'll send a few your way.
That would be great.